Good evening and welcome to BCTV's Community Consensus. I am Laura Hughes. I am your host. We will be talking about a very important and historical topic today, gun reform. We wanted to bring together our voices in our community to find out what everybody's talking about. Gun reform is quite the buzz, and justifiably so. We want to bring together facts and information to display before you. We also want to bring out the cohesiveness in our community that is needed right now to find out what the most positive and creative solutions we can find to preserve the safety that we need as a community. I have 8 guests today that have come out to speak with us on this, and I would like to start with Mayor Myers. Please, everyone, say your name, your title, and how you stand on this topic with 1 or 2 sentences. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hughes, and it's a pleasure to be a part of this panel to talk about this very important topic. My name is Bob Myers, and I am the mayor of the borough of Birdsboro, and it is my personal position that if you are a responsible, law-abiding citizen of the United States, you should be entitled to own a gun. If you're not, you should not be entitled to own one.
Hi, my name's Karen Feridun, and I'm without a title. I recently organized some protests at gun shows and at the Crime Summit, and I did so because I believe that while I believe in Second Amendment rights, I believe that we need to do something about the level of gun violence in this country, so I was hoping to just keep the conversation going.
Good evening. My name is Mary Ann Deery, and I am the mayor of the borough of Boyertown. And of course, I'm concerned with violence and what can we do to help curb this violence. And I think there are some loopholes that have to be discussed and can be finalized. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me here. My name is Roy Del Rosario. I'm the mayor of Hamburg. I am also a member of the Mayors Against Illegal Guns Coalition, which is an organization to protect the Second Amendment, but also to stop the illegal possession of firearms in our country.
Hi, I'm Attorney Joshua Prince. I represent both individuals and federal firearms licensees at the state and federal level in defense of the Second Amendment of the United States, as well as Article 1, Section 21 of the Pennsylvania Constitution. It's an honor and a privilege to be here tonight with all of you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Chief Kessler from the Gilberton Borough Police Department. It's truly an honor to be here tonight amongst everyone, and I hope we have a great discussion.
Good evening. I'm Mike Williams. I'm the state chapter president of Oath Keepers, and I believe that the Second Amendment and one's right to protect himself or herself is best left to the people and not to the government.
Good evening. My name is Eric Weaknecht. I'm the elected sheriff here in Berks County, and it's an honor to be here. Thank you very much for the invite. And I pretty much agree with almost everything that was said here this evening so far. I am pro-gun. I'm pro-Second Amendment. And I do think that we do have some crime issues, but I hope we can get to the root of it and the people realize that the guns are not the issue. It's the people and what they're doing with these guns. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, if anybody has any questions or concerns or just would like to show support, we have a call-in number. If you'd like to address some of our speakers directly, please wait until they have actually spoken. We're going to give everyone about a 2.5-minute run for just explaining how they feel about gun reform and hopefully giving us some more information. Our call-in number is 610-378-0426. Again, that number is 610-378-0426. May I have my first graph up? I would like to bring to light a little information that I've found. Last 2 weeks, I've been digging through an incredible amount of information, trying to find unbiased facts in which we could found some of our information on. May we have that first graph, please? Okay, my information was all taken off the FBI.gov, not all of it, but most of it. And where I deterred from it, I will give you a side note. I picked FBI.gov because it is unbiased. And it seemed as if their numbers were very, very strong. On the form that you have in front of you now, it shows readings from 1992 to 2011. And as you can see, if you go up to the violence column, I have certain numbers circled there. Violence crime went from Violence crime, I'm sorry, everything is based on 100,000 people. If you go from the line 992 to 2011, you'll see that the violent crimes went down 50%. That is not circled. Can they see that on the screen? Is that scrolled down far enough? Also, I went to look at murders and homicide. They too went down 50%, actually 54%. And that's over the last 20 years. I don't know if I have a graph up there showing 2011 to 2012, but if I do not, I looked at those graphs too on FBI.gov. Our crime rate is coming down considerably. I tried to find out where is crime in our country, and it is where there are 250,000 people in a metropolis. When it's over that amount, you have concentrated areas of crime. I also found out that 48% of that crime is gang-related. I dug further and tried to find out about repeated offenders, and that is a very large percent. I'm looking right now to find out where I have that percent. Does anybody know what that percent might be? All I can say it's around 48 or 50%. At least that, and I'm being modest. I also took a look at other countries. Could you please change that graph and see if there's another graph on 2011 to 2012, please? Okay, so I took a look at England. It's www Home Office. I don't know if it's UK or England. Just check out the government statistics. And in England, after gun banning, the crime rose 3 times the amount that we have here. And the murders, yes, okay, the murders did fall down. But I kept digging, and I found out that the murders were based on 100,000 per people, and their figures showed that. Well, we have 6 times the amount of metropolises. So I'm not sure how much I want to trust that figure. Do we have another? Could you go to the next graph or the next piece of paper? Here's gun control stats. Firearm homicides are down here, 11,493. Non-firearm homicides, 16,799. At the top, we have medical errors. We have unintentional injuries, alcohol abuse, motor vehicles, drug abuse is down here too, unintentional poisonings. I kept digging through information. Australia, I checked out Australia with their gun bans. Horrific. Crime rose. I just wanted to bring this to light. Of course, I'm the host and I am on neutral territory. But the facts, we are after the facts. I want all of you to use these facts for your own favor. Okay, I believe we should go on. If we don't have any phone calls, I'd like to move to our first speaker, Mayor Myers. You have the floor. And thank you again, everyone, for coming.
I am the mayor of the progressive and vibrant community of Birdsboro. And it's a source of great pride to me that I'm a veteran of the U.S. military. I was in the Army in 1969, and I ETS'd in 1971 during the Vietnam War. I have a collection of rifles, and I have a 12-gauge shotgun. With them, I'm also a hunter. I enjoy small game hunting, and I pursue white-tailed deer in Pennsylvania's great woods. Because I do enjoy guns, I'm a strong believer and a proponent for the Second Amendment of the United States Constitution. It reads, "A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed." I'm also a member of the organization that my colleague Roy had alluded to earlier, that calls itself Mayors Against Illegal Guns. The emphasis is on the word illegal. I don't belong to Mayors Against Guns. The operative term is illegal. Now, what's the difference between a legal and an illegal gun? You're probably asking yourself. That's a fair question, deserving a straightforward answer. My long guns are legal. Handguns, in and of themselves, are legal. Even the semi-automatic weapons that are making the news of late, like the AR-15 and the Bushmaster 223, are in and of themselves legal, at least at this point in time. All these firearms, however, can become illegal. This can happen several ways, but in my mind, the most important and most common way is if they are received by or are in the possession of a convicted felon, an illicit drug user, an illegal alien, someone who is involved in an act of domestic violence, anyone who is dishonorably discharged from the military, or someone who is mentally ill with a propensity for violence. As a member of Mayors Against Illegal Guns, I want to do everything that's humanly possible to keep guns out of the hands of these types of individuals. Common sense just dictates that we do all that we should do to accomplish that. Oh, there's one more thing I'd like to tell you about myself. In addition to being a mayor, a veteran, a gun owner, and a hunter, I'm a grandfather. And when I first heard about the unspeakable horror that was inflicted on Newtown, Connecticut several weeks ago, my heart stopped. That tragic slaughter of 20 innocent first graders only strengthened my resolve to do everything I can to make sure that legal guns be kept in the hands of those that deserve to have them and out of the hands of those that don't.
Excuse me? Thank you so much for
Mayor,
that.
thank you for your
Myers.
service to our country.
Yes, and thank you for the service to our country. Absolutely, above all else. We have a home viewer. We'd like to take that call if possible.
Yes. Hi. I just wanted to add to the statistics. I noticed that in Chicago, which is our president's adopted home city, that they have the toughest gun laws in the country, and their violent crime and gun is absolutely ridiculous. Between January 1st and December 21st of 2012, they had over 2,000 shooting incidents, 487 homicides. 87% of them were gun-related. They have the toughest laws in the country against guns, and it did nothing to stop crime. It actually increased the crime. What the tougher laws do is take away the ability for the honest person, the law-abiding citizen, to be able to defend themselves, and the criminal likes nothing more than a defenseless victim.
Thank you. Thank you for your call. I appreciate that. Does anybody?
All right, you guys have a good night.
Thank you.
If I could rebut the mayor's.
Please.
Mr. Mayor, thanks for coming tonight and being among us all here. What would you say your stance is on the semi-automatic tactical rifles as far as a ban on that? Would you agree to something like that, or?
As I had indicated earlier, those weapons currently are legal. You can legally possess them at this point in time. Until they are made illegal, I am supportive of a responsible, law-abiding citizen being able to have one.
And again, Mayor, you mentioned the shooting up in Connecticut. Do you know exactly what type of firearm was used up in Connecticut against those poor children? And again, I'm a father also and a grandfather. My heart goes out to all the victims and the family members up there in Connecticut. Well, again, Mayor, do you know exactly which firearm was used in Connecticut to commit those heinous crimes?
If I'm not mistaken, Mr. Lanza had handguns, and they were what had been used in the slaughter, but he also had a semi-automatic weapon, not necessarily used in killing the youngsters, but he had a semi-automatic weapon in his possession.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, do you know where it was recovered, the semi-automatic? When you say semi-automatic weapon, what are you specifically saying, as a semi-automatic handgun or a rifle? Would that be considered?
It's my understanding it was a long gun.
Okay, do you know where it was recovered?
I don't have that level of I'm not knowledgeable about that.
It was recovered in this vehicle in the parking lot. The shooter entered the building using handguns only. He did not use the so-called assault weapon that everybody's been demonizing lately. That wasn't used at all.
But it was in his possession.
Yes, you're right. It was in his possession. He brought it to school outside in the parking lot. He did not use that weapon. He used handguns and fired them to shoot his way into the building and commit these heinous crimes.
Excuse me, may I just make one remark there? I do have another fact, and it was 3.5 rifles. 3.5% of murders that are created in our country are from rifles. That's a very small percentage.
I'm sorry, were you done? One thing I'd like to add, given the concern over tactical rifles, and that is very few people here in Pennsylvania and even throughout the United States realize that it is actually legal to own machine guns, short-barreled rifles, short-barreled shotguns, silencers. And when you look at the statistics, what is extremely surprising is they've never been used in a single crime. You have never had a legally owned machine gun used in any form of crime in the United States. And that's something that bears consideration in the discussion that we're having. Law-abiding citizens are not using these firearms in a nefarious way. Obviously, we have criminals that are going to use firearms and any means that they can find to commit the crimes that they want to commit. It goes back to the old saying, if we only had laws against murder, murder wouldn't happen, right? Unfortunately, we know all too well that that's not the case. Thank you.
When you say that law-abiding citizens, in fact, do own machine guns and short-barreled shotguns, and special licenses are required in order to be in possession of those types of firearms. Am I correct?
It isn't a per se license. It's a tax stamp that the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives approves of. But yes, there is an application.
Extensive background checks relative to criminality and mental health are required in order to possess those types of firearms. Am I correct?
Yes, but it is the same background checks that are done under what's called NICS, the National Instant Check System, which the FBI runs. Here in Pennsylvania, we use the PICS system, which is the Pennsylvania Instant Check System. It's more thorough than NICS is, and we query NICS as part of a PICS check. So yes, but the misconception is that it's a more thorough background check when in reality it's not. It is the same background check that is performed for any individual who is purchasing a firearm.
Thank you.
Are those background checks required for the exchange of all firearms?
As far as Class 3, sir? As far as short-barrel shotguns, short-barrel rifles, and machine guns?
Any firearm. Any firearm. Are those background checks required?
There are certain occasions where individuals from the same state do not have to go through a federal firearms licensee. They allow for long gun transfers, handguns. Generally speaking, you must go through a federal firearms licensee, a gun dealer. But there are allowances for rifles and shotguns for people to transfer them to another resident of Pennsylvania, provided they are also a resident of Pennsylvania. The interesting thing is, although people tout that as the gun show loophole, there has never been any finding that any of those firearms have been used in crime. And if anyone has any statistics, I've always been looking for those statistics because they would be the prime example of why the state, and many states have this same allowance, would do away with that permission for residents of the same state to transfer firearms to one another. And again, I just want to caution our viewers, Pennsylvania's definition of a firearm is somewhat unique. We're talking about long guns and shotguns, not handguns. Generally speaking, always for handguns, you do have to go through a federal firearms licensee.
Thank you.
Okay, in regard to the NICS, the National Instant Criminal Background Check, I know, I do not recall his name, but the shooter at Virginia Tech, I know he was ruled mentally unstable by a judge and was barred from ever owning a firearm, but yet they failed to put him into the system. So the system is failing the United States. I blame some of it on the lawmakers because we're failing them. We're not making sure this information is getting in. I know Pennsylvania, they just put in 643,000 records, mental health records, into the system. So when you say that Pennsylvania is using PICS and not NICS, is that where people are falling through the cracks?
We use PICS, and PICS queries NICS. So in a sense, we have a duplicative layer or background check because in checking PICS, it also goes out and queries NICS. So if NICS says something, we'll get it. If PICS has something, we'll get it as well and deny that individual. And I can tell you, Pennsylvania does a very good job at denying those people who have been involuntarily committed. Here in PA, if you have ever been 302'd, which is basically an involuntary commitment, and that's done just on a doctor's signature. There's no court hearing. You don't have a right to an attorney. There is no due process there. But if you are 302'd based on a doctor's signature, you are forever precluded unless you can get a court to grant you relief from being able to own a firearm, ammunition, and here even in the Commonwealth, an electronic incapacitation device, which is a stun gun or a taser or that. And that comes as a surprise to many people. But here in Pennsylvania, we've added that on when someone becomes prohibited that they cannot have an electronic incapacitation device as well.
We have another home viewer. Please go ahead. We cannot hear you. Can you please be a little bit louder?
Are you there?
Yes, we are.
Okay, I didn't hear you.
Okay.
I just had something about the Mayors Against Illegal Guns. This comes right off their website. If you weren't aware, Michael Bloomberg runs that whole group, and he has left a statement on there saying they would like to limit magazine capacity to 5 or 6 rounds. He left a statement then that if you haven't hit a deer with 3 shots, the deer deserves to get away. This whole thing is not a deer issue. It's not a hunting issue. If we ban high-cap magazines, it only affects you and I. It does nothing to stop a criminal who will buy anything even if they can't have it. I think Mayors Against Illegal Guns is nothing but a front for gun grabbers. And I'll take your answer off the screen.
Would anybody like to address that?
I did see that they were trying to ban high-capacity magazines. The issue with that is the criminals are outgunning the police officers.
I have to disagree with that. I would have to definitely disagree with that. That's a false statement. As a chief of police, we're not outgunned. I can guarantee you that. We're not outgunned. I'm sure the sheriff would agree with that. The police officers are not outgunned by criminals. I run into a lot of cheap handguns. I'm sure Eric, the sheriff, also runs into a lot of cheap handguns. I encounter a lot of knives. I don't encounter men or women or criminals with high-capacity magazines, so-called assault weapons, I'll repeat that, in any way, shape, or form. Again, they're cheap, disposable handguns in the $100 to $150 range. That's what I run into when I'm on my job. When I put my uniform on and risk my life on a daily basis, protect everybody's rights in this room, including yours, Mayor, I come across a lot of cheap handguns, not the so-called assault weapons. And the 15 years that I'm serving, to this day, I still have not encountered anyone with a assault weapon as a threat towards the police department. So I'd have to say that's absolutely false. When the Vice President of the United States comes on and says that the police are outgunned, that's not true. I don't agree with that at all.
Chief Kessler, could you please tell everybody the act that you've taken?
Yes, absolutely. I came up with it's called the resolution, the Second Amendment Preservation Resolution for my little borough, which I protect. There's only about 870-some people in the borough. If you want me to read it off, I can read it off. That's quite all right.
Certainly, whatever you'd like to do.
Okay, it states basically, resolution of the Borough of Gilberton, which shall and be known and may be cited as the Second Amendment Preservation Resolution. Whereas the Second Amendment of the Constitution of the United States reads as follows: a well-regulated militia being necessary to the free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, along with Article 1, Section 21 of the Pennsylvania Constitution, which states right to bear arms. The right of the people, the right of the citizens to bear arms in defense of themselves and the state shall not be questioned. Whereas to prevent federal, state, or local infringement on the right to keep and bear firearms, firearms accessories, or ammunition, nullifying all federal, state, or local acts in violation of the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States, along with Article 1, Section 21, the right to bear arms of the Pennsylvania Constitution. The people of the Borough of Gilberton do enact as follows. The Council of the Borough of Gilberton within the state of Pennsylvania finds that A, all federal, state, or local acts, laws, orders, rules, or regulations regarding firearms, firearms accessories, or ammunition are a violation of the Second Amendment along with Article 1, Section 21 of the Pennsylvania Constitution and in violation of this resolution. Section B, the Council of this Borough of Gilberton within the state of Pennsylvania recognizes that all federal, state, or local acts, laws, orders, rules, or regulations, past, present, or future, in violation of the Second Amendment of the Constitution of the United States and or Section 21 of the Constitution of Pennsylvania are not authorized by the Constitution of the United States and or the Constitution of Pennsylvania and violate its true meaning and intent as given by the founders and ratifiers, and are hereby declared to be invalid within Gilberton Borough and all of its boundaries, and shall not be recognized by this council, and are specifically rejected by the Borough of Gilberton within all of its boundaries within the state of Pennsylvania, and shall be considered null and void, and have no effect in the Borough of Gilberton within the state of Pennsylvania. And Section C goes on to say, it shall be the duty of the governing body of Gilberton Borough or the police chief to adopt or enact any and all measures as may be necessary to prevent the unconstitutional enforcement of any federal, state, or local acts, laws, orders, rules, or regulations in violation of the Second Amendment of the Constitution of the United States, along with Article 1, Section 21 of the Pennsylvania Constitution, the right to keep and bear arms. I'd also like to state that I've taken an oath to defend my country, defend my citizens, defend myself, my family, and I intend on abiding that oath. And part of the Constitution is the Second Amendment, and it shall not be infringed, period.
like to make a couple of points clear, and that's that you actually came up with an ordinance to supersede county, state, and federal rulings.
Correct. It was first, the first draft was an ordinance, and then after I got the borough solicitor involved, we did it as a resolution, because only certain, the state can only pass certain laws when it comes to firearms, and I mean only certain laws. They can't, they have to be very careful with that situation.
This is starting to sweep our country, and it's starting to in little towns. And other people and other townships are asking where to get such an ordinance. Is there a specific site? I believe Oath Keepers.
Yeah, there's one on oathkeepers.org, and Josh?
Oathkeepers.org, and where else can they receive a copy of this?
Up on our blog, blog.princelaw.com, we actually have a copy of the signed ordinance that Gilberton enacted with all the council members' signatures on it. So you can go
Very
on
good.
blog.princelaw.com to get that.
Could you say
Chief,
that?
may I ask a question about that? Would a convicted felon or a mentally or emotionally unstable resident of your municipality be able to lawfully obtain and possess a firearm on the basis of that ordinance?
No, they would have to still go through the background checks. And as you're well aware, Mayor, there is, to secure a handgun in Pennsylvania or anywhere in the country, we already have national background checks for that. The only thing in Pennsylvania is we don't have private-to-private sales in Pennsylvania are legal with long guns only, not handguns. And like I said before, I come across handguns. I don't come across long guns in my line of work.
Aren't you though nullifying by virtue of the language of your ordinance?
Any acts, orders, rules, or regulations that come down from the current sitting president, absolutely. My thought and theory on that is, and I can speak for myself and I speak freely, I don't believe in what he's trying to do and his administration's trying to do. I believe our freedom's at stake, and I never thought I would see the day where I'm 41 years old, where I would have to defend my own freedom in my own country.
But existing law is enforced in your municipality. Is that correct?
Can you repeat that, Mr. Mayor?
Existing law is enforced in your municipality. Is that correct?
Existing law as for?
The existing firearms laws.
Correct. Yes, correct.
Oh.
Existing law.
Okay. All right.
All right. Could Eric have it, and could everybody else speak up? Okay.
If I could touch a little bit on, there was a lot of talk here on the PIC system, the NIC system, and just a little bit of history about myself. I took office as sheriff. I worked for the department prior to in 2008. And one of the things that I wanted to do was, being born and raised in the rural area, Greenwich Township of our county, I wanted to make it easier for law-abiding citizens to obtain a license to carry firearm. In 2008, we issued just a little over 5,700 permits to county residents. And last year, we had our biggest year. We had over 10,000 permits issued. And again, that was going out in the community. We set up 5 remote locations. We have an airport substation. We basically make it as easy as possible for the law-abiding citizen to come in and get their permit. And I emphasize law-abiding citizen is because that's what we're seeing. The criminals are not coming to us. They're not going to a sporting goods store to get their weapons. They're buying them on the street. Out of just a little over 34,000 permits active in Berks County, last year, we revoked, meaning that someone went out and committed a crime or did something they shouldn't have done, less than 1%, actually 0.15% of our permit holders were revoked. We rejected, meaning that someone came in and made application to us and they were rejected because of the PICS or NICS check, less than 1%, actually 0.9%. And by doing what everyone's talking about as far as gun control, limiting what we can do, you're targeting the wrong people. You're targeting people who live their entire lives within our boundaries, within the laws of our country, And you're now making it harder for them, or banning certain weapons that they may want to own just to own, to exercise their right to go out and practice with, or that we have a lot of collectors. And we want to make it harder for them and jump through hoops, or possibly make it even illegal. And it doesn't make any sense at all. Because right here are the numbers in Berks County, and I'm sure that we are echoing the same numbers that we're seeing throughout our Commonwealth and also throughout our country, where people are actually doing the process. And I think it is absolutely ridiculous that because of one instance, what pretty much got everyone going, that we're trying to change the laws that we have. We have to remember, we have plenty of laws on the books. It is illegal to sell a gun to a convicted felon or to someone who has a mental health issue. What's happening with it? These people need to be charged, they need to be convicted, and they need to be put away for whatever time the court gives them.
Absolutely.
In the case of a murder, it should actually be a law that the person who sold that gun should be charged with that murder as a direct result of providing that gun. And that's not what we're seeing. We're just making certain guns illegal. We're trying to have a capacity of magazines illegal, and it's not going to work. Because what's going to happen is it's just going to drive up the price of the existing guns, the existing magazines. The people on the streets are going to be making money on them because they're going to still sell them without going through checks, and we're pretty much just spinning our wheels in the mud.
Sheriff, just to clarify, I believe your proposal is that if someone knowingly sells a firearm
Correct.
to someone who's going to go out and commit
Yes,
murder.
absolutely, absolutely.
I have a question because I know that you're already subject to a lot of laws, a lot of regulations. I'm wondering, because it seems like a lot of the things that have been proposed have sort of gotten lumped together, and so I'm wondering what objection you have specifically to the universal background check, because I know in Pennsylvania we do have a smaller loophole than a lot of states where, I believe 33, don't put any limitations on private gun sales. And so if that's the national statistic, how could it hurt to have a universal background check? I'm just wondering your opinion on that.
My opinion is the numbers speak for themselves. You're going to have, again, anyone going through that are law-abiding citizens. When you have a person that knows that they're convicted of a crime or that they're not allowed to carry a gun, they're not going to go to your neighborhood sporting goods store to buy a gun. They're going to go to the criminals on the street, or they're going to have someone do a straw purchase for them. They're not going to be going in. It doesn't matter what checks you do because they're not going to pass it. Right. So they know that going into it, so they're just going to go and buy it illegally.
Well, for instance, Columbine was a mass murder that was conducted by guns that had been purchased for the shooters by people, one of whom testified that she wouldn't have purchased the guns if she was required to go through a background check because she didn't think she would have passed it. And in 2010, there was a Pentagon shooting where 2 officers were killed by a fellow from California who couldn't get a gun in California because of the universal background check, so he went to Nevada where he could get a gun himself and without any background check. And so there are a couple of instances we know of for sure. In fact, the gun show loophole story became a headline story because of Columbine. And so, I just wonder if it's, if it's fair to say universally that it's not going to do any good.
Well, again, there's 2 instances, and we're now going to change the entire way we do business and have done business as a country where if you live your law according to the laws of our land, you live your life according to the laws of our land, why should you be punished? You just brought up 2 instances where, that's just 2. Now, obviously, they're very bad. People have been hurt and killed. But again, to make a change in the way we're doing business, we have adequate laws. We have adequate background checks. We don't have the people who are buying guns for a problem or to use illegally going and filling out those papers and going to the checks to get done, fingerprinted or whatever else. They're not going to do it. They're going to go to the streets and they're going to buy them.
I'm sorry. We have 2 home viewers who have questions, but did you want either one to clarify something?
I am pro-police. I just don't want you guys, I want you guys to come home safe. That's all I'm trying to say. When you talk about 302s in involuntary commitment, I work as a paramedic, and many times I've seen where we get to the scene where the officer says, either you go on your own or we're going to commit you. So they go on their own and they commit themselves. What about those people who are habitually committing themselves on a voluntary versus the 302s, I understand. But what about the people who have the issues but still can get guns? I'm asking this side of the room because they're the experts on law, I believe, so.
I'd have to answer that, Mr. Mayor, is when they involuntarily commit themselves, and I've taken several people down to be committed voluntarily and involuntarily on 302s, they are evaluated by the physician. And if the physician feels that they are a threat to society, they're going to keep them. The physician will then, in turn, 302 the patient at that point in time. Even though they voluntarily committed themselves, they will be evaluated at that point in time at the hospital, and then they will be committed by the physician.
Okay. But what about the ones who actually aren't 302'd? They voluntarily commit themselves.
The doctor can sign them in.
Right.
Involuntarily. And I can tell you, having a large practice that deals with these issues and reviewing the medical records, frequently what I see is the medical records establish that the individual voluntarily admitted themselves, and the doctor goes and involuntarily commits them. That's actually a violation of the Mental Health and Procedures Act. But that is what I am seeing frequently. And whenever there is issues like that, the doctor can petition and ask the court to even keep them longer, which is a 303. So people are being committed very frequently, and oftentimes I'm also seeing it's because of them being inebriated. They truly aren't of a mental condition that they're suicidal or that. They've imbibed too much, and as a result, they're being 302'd because they're not of proper mindset. The other thing I just wanted to say real quickly, I know we have some viewers that are looking to talk, is I wanted to quote the Arkansas State Supreme Court from 1878. The case was Wilson versus State of Arkansas. The site is 33 Arkansas 557. And what the court said is, if cowardly and dishonorable men sometimes shoot unarmed men with army pistols or guns, the evil must be prevented by the penitentiary and gallows, and not by the general deprivation of a constitutional privilege. And I believe that's very telling even today. Also, one last thing before we get to those viewers, I would ask everyone to consider why it is the case that someone can get a second DUI, likely be prohibited from owning a firearm for the rest of his or her life, and yet we do not deny that individual the ability to have a driver's license or own a vehicle. DUI is a huge killer. I won't say it's the #1 form of death, because that's not the case, but it's far more than firearm-related deaths. So maybe we need to turn and look to where the real problems lie, instead of always trying to find the scapegoat.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, can we hear from the home viewer? I'm sorry, could you turn that up a bit?
I'm sorry, could you turn that up a bit?
Hello?
Hello, yes, please. You're on Community Consensus.
Hi, ma'am. My question is for the lady second from the left. With the nation all about controlling firearms and an assault weapon ban, and I see that she brought up Columbine incident. If I remember correctly, Columbine occurred in the middle of the last assault weapon ban. So how would another one prevent that from happening?
Okay.
It's a good question, and I can't pretend to have an answer for you, but I do know from the testimony of the people that by whatever means they were able to go into another state and purchase weapons. Not another state in that case. They were able to go to gun shows in that case and purchase weapons they probably shouldn't have been able to purchase based on what the laws were at the time that were involved in those horrible murders.
Okay. Also, regarding the gun shows, since you've been protesting outside of them, I've been to numerous gun shows, and at all of them, the dealers were conducting background checks.
Good to know. Good to hear. He said that he's been to many gun shows, and there are background checks.
If I can add, that's actual federal law. Anyone who has a federal firearms license must conduct background checks, and either at their licensed premise or if they're at a gun show, at the gun show. They cannot do a sale of a firearm at any location other than their licensed premise and a gun show.
Very good.
It really doesn't surprise me that applications for gun permits aren't resulting in many that are denied because of someone being a felon or someone who has limitations with respect to their mental or emotional faculties. If I were a convicted felon, I sure wouldn't go to the sheriff's office and seek a gun permit. If I were a convicted felon, I would go to a private seller. I would steal a weapon, as you suggest. I would go to a corrupt dealer. I would acquire my weapon in a nefarious way. And that just suggests to me that measures have to be taken to tighten up these means of acquisition of firearms. And that can be done by the universal criminal background check that Ms. Feridun addressed a little earlier. It can be done by assuring that when weapons are stolen or lost, that responsible citizens report that to the local law enforcement officers. And I just think that these types of loopholes have to be addressed.
But why would we address something that works? Why would we address a system that works? I'm saying that from a neutral position. Why?
But
When we have
does it work?
figures.
There are flaws
It's
in the
very-
existing system.
It works because our crime rate has come down.
Does it truly work because there are flaws in our existing background check
No
system?
system is perfect.
You're right. And we're attempting. Every effort
Why
is
would
made to. Every effort is being made to address those flaws. And until these efforts that are being made are intensified, I think these flaws will just continue
So maybe
to
even
exist.
background checks or something. I want to try to get some of our other speakers to speak. We have oath keepers, Mr. Williams.
Laura, if I could just real quick address the mayor there, as far as I used to also be the manager of a gun shop that deals in firearms, and I had several instances where people came in, felons, and tried to buy firearms and rejected. So, I mean, you're saying that the average criminal doesn't, or the criminals don't come in to try and buy guns. They do come in to try and buy guns. I'd just like to say that.
Really?
Absolutely.
Just to elaborate on Oath Keepers, Oath Keepers is an association of military law enforcement and firefighters, and what we do is we encourage other military law enforcement and firefighters to keep the oath to the Constitution that they took as per Article 6 of the Constitution. We've had 100 years of ramping up gun laws, and in some ways maybe they've been effective, in some ways they're not effective. The bottom line is, if you're looking to your government for protection, you better stop doing that. You better start looking toward yourself for your protection, because frankly, the government doesn't care about you. The only person who cares about you is you. You need to protect your family and take personal responsibility for your self-defense. Anything that's going to keep you from exercising your right to keep and bear arms, or as I like to call it, possessing your property, because that's exactly what it is, you should do away with immediately. You need to take care of yourself and stop looking toward these people to protect you, because they have a long history of failing in doing that.
Okay.
I have one quick question, and I'm going to turn to the attorney here. Before I came on the show, I contacted the Mayors Against Illegal Guns and tried to get some more information. What do you know about the Florida loophole, where they can get a carry permit from Florida, but because Pennsylvania has reciprocity, now you've got a criminal who has a license to carry from another state. Like I said, it's information that I got from them, so I figured
I'd like
you
to
could clear
address
that
that
up for
question.
us.
Sure. First, I always find it humorous that anytime something is legal, but it goes against someone else's desired goal, it's a loophole. I think there's a problem with that. Some might argue the First Amendment's a loophole. So that's my first concern. With regards to Florida licenses to carry firearms, Florida's application process is actually more stringent than Pennsylvania's. The difference is that here in Pennsylvania we have a character and reputation clause that is not defined. And chief law enforcement officers in the county or in the city of Philadelphia, it's the chief of police, can deny for any reason whatsoever based on character and reputation. And so, I mean, we don't see those issues in many of the counties. I know I don't see them with Sheriff Weaknecht. We don't see that elsewhere other than in city of Philadelphia, where people are law-abiding citizens, they want to get licenses, but the chief just says he's not going to issue them. He's going to deny the license. So the people, because we do have a reciprocity agreement with Florida, will apply for a non-resident license down with Florida. They have to submit fingerprints. They go through a full background check. They are not someone who is prohibited from being able to own a firearm. And assuming that they fit the criteria that Florida has specified, they will be issued a license to carry firearms from Florida. And then, because of that reciprocity, they can carry here in Pennsylvania.
Thank you.
Sure, absolutely, my pleasure.
Does anybody have anything to add?
Again, I'm Mary Ann Deery, the mayor of Boyertown. I'd like it to be known that actually I come from a family of hunters. I'm not against guns. I'm a proponent of our Second Amendment. But I think what I am hearing is that there is a fear that if we banish weapons of such violence, the next step is going to be your handguns. The Constitution does give you the right to own a firearm, to protect yourself and family, and to farm your land. That right was written, I believe, in 1797. That's over 200 years ago. And the gun that you had at that time was a muzzle. Times have changed, and I think that no matter what business you're in, whether it's law enforcement, a grocery store, whatever, every now and then you've got to tweak how you do business. And I think with the mass killings that has happened recently, we must look at that. You can't say, oh, you're trying to take away my rights. This is an issue that has to be looked at and addressed. As much as I don't know how to say this, but government, even though I'm a member of a government body, I like less government in my face. The less federal government that addresses our people, the better. However, with the accessibility of being able to get a firearm in one state and not in the other, means that the federal government has to be involved in those laws. However, if all the states could actually agree on all the same document, then I would submit that the state should handle this problem.
I'd just
Thank
like to
you.
say, Mrs. Mayor, that the Constitution, it's we the people. It's not them, the government. And we do have, as we the people, we have the right to amend the Constitution on a national referendum or something like that. But again, you say you're a hunter. This Second Amendment has nothing to do with hunting purposes, sporting purposes. It has to do with tyranny and government for we the people to protect ourselves from people that are unfortunately in control of our country right now.
I'm sorry.
I'm not denying that. I'm not denying that you should have a weapon to protect yourself.
I wish we had more time. I'm sorry. We only have a minute left. We have 2 minutes left. Okay, all right. Well, I'd like to thank everybody for coming and joining us and explaining your viewpoints, bringing information to our viewers and facts. And we at BCTV thank all of our viewers for watching. Please, become a member of BCTV. If you can donate towards BCTV, please do. Come in, have a program of your own. Let's discuss things. This is all about having a voice in our community. I did have another slide that I wanted to show at the end. It's something we didn't touch on. I also wanted to talk about maybe some shows in the future. Behavioral medicine would be big. I think that has a play in our crime. Also, the educational system, why we are only, Americans are only maybe 10 or 1% of higher education in our colleges. I want to talk about current events. It's very interesting how the international group is taking a look at this. Every day I read articles in the Chinese newspapers, and they are keeping a very big eye on their plans. And I read international newspapers because mainstream media, it's just very difficult to get good information out or from them. That's another show that should be around. How can we get information? How can people that work 2 jobs or both parents are working, there's so little time to find out what's going on. And that's another reason why we have shows like this. Thank you again for watching Community Consensus. I'm Laura Hughes, and I'd like to say good night and thank you.